The best years of your life are ahead. Live from Hollywood, California, the man who traded in hope for a solution, the vaccine for America's pharma dream, the man who legalized stealing your health back. You're listening to The Natural Health Report with your host, Matthew David Hurtado.
All right, well, welcome everybody. I am Matthew David Hurtado, your host of The Natural Health Report, and tonight I have a very special guest, Alexandra Meadors, and her website is galacticconnection.com, and you can visit that if you want to get more information. And we're going to be talking about some important health information that may be exactly what you're looking for. We have a different point of view tonight that's a little bit it's not really abstract, it's just a little more advanced than a lot of the mainstream approaches to restoring well-being and to looking at health and sickness. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Alexandra on. Alexandra, are you with us?
I am. How are you, Matthew?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you. So I was just getting up to speed on your website, and I noticed that you have what you call galactic essences. Would you like to tell us a little bit about maybe let's start with some of your story, because I know that you've had some health challenges that you've overcome and how you got into doing what you're doing today before we actually get into the product.
Sure. In 2001, I had an absolutely horrific car accident, and I was in bed for 3 years, basically. I was in nonstop 24/7 pain for about 11 years. And so because of that journey, I learned to go outside the conventional medicine because it wasn't working. And I ended up looking into alternative ways of healing my body. And so I went far beyond the physicality of, supplementation, making sure I had a good diet, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that that's not also a very key ingredient in healing yourself. But I really, really went down the rabbit hole, so to speak, as far as truly healing all of me. And with that experience came a multitude of realizations about what makes up the body, what causes pain, what types of energy fields the body actually contains. And it ended up opening my eyes to a whole nother avenue in which I decided to go down. I was a corporate, sales management, that kind of thing, for over 20 years, and it just really stopped me in my tracks. I ended up working for a holistic vet for a little while who also opened up my eyes, just seeing it through the eyes of the animals. And I began to realize that there really wasn't a tremendous difference between the animals and the people if you look at it energy-wise. So energetically, everything gets down to that point. We are energy. And if we can change the way that we perceive the physical body, there is just nothing we cannot do to fix ourselves, to repair ourselves, and to eliminate the pain. I was literally injured from head to toe. A lot of it was soft tissue and just a ton of dislocations, plus I completely shattered my right foot and went through just some extremely painful surgeries and lost my vision. I mean, I could go on and on, but the point is I had to really start looking at my body in a completely different way. And I decided to go back to school and jump into homeopathy and essences, which people may or may not have heard of it, but it's absolutely ancient. It's something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. It goes back to even probably before Egypt. And what they did was they took things such as rocks, minerals, flowers, and if you get into homeopathy, they'll take things like the venom of a spider, the bee itself, things like that, and they create the essence of that, meaning that they take the physical matter and they succuss it, and they potentize it to a point where there really is no physical matter left once you put it under a microscope. And then you're getting into alchemy, which I know you're familiar with, Matthew.
Yep.
And what I didn't realize was that I truly carry a gift of alchemy. I have the capability of providing some very powerful remedies. And my main thing is to assist people in unwinding the past life pains and wounds, etc., that they carry with them. Even if you don't believe in past lives or reincarnation, the bottom line is you still carry these imprints within your cellular memory. And in order to really be truly healing your body and yourself, you really need to address that part of yourself. And I just found this out through testimony. So that's where it all started.
It's interesting you say that, because imprints is a big word these days, and I know we can talk about the other kind of imprints, but everybody who's anybody seems to be talking about epigenetics, and they talk about how the environment can control this, the signals in the the DNA, and all these sort of things are becoming energetic. So that is where the future lies, and we're getting into those like essence vibrational type remedies seem to be the new thing, the new frontier. So you're right there, and that's kind of what we do too as well. So what I noticed, I listened to your interview on your website, and I know you had some stories that you were talking about where people have received some benefit from that. Can you share maybe a story or two about how that can kind of play out for somebody with getting into the essences and using that sort of I don't want to say therapy, it's more like a self-care, so to speak.
True, it really is. Well, what I tell a lot of people is those that have done a ton of work on themselves, and I mean enlightened or spiritual work, what the essences do is they stabilize you through the radical changes that we're going through right now, Matthew. I mean, there's just so much change going on the planet, and it gives you the capacity to remain kind of centered and stable and untriggered by a lot of the drama that's going on around you, even if it was just at a store, or even a radio station that is promoting war. What we don't realize, because we're energetic beings, just those mere words are very discordant against our frequency, and they really truly do affect us. Energetic medicine is definitely the wave of the future, so I'm not talking fairy tale here. This is really something that even doctors are realizing is the wave of the future, and it's truly where healing begins. With some of my clients, what I typically hear is they have a much better ability to see through that which is happening to them, and they become a lot more conscious. Their consciousness expands and grows. Their gifts expand. They're able to handle their emotional bodies and their emotional triggering points much more effectively. I'm very good at removing blockages, and those blockages can come from a ton of different reasons. Again, past life residue is a very large thing, because our souls become very fragmented from the continuation of reincarnation. And so we end up, unfortunately, carrying the cellular memory into this lifetime from very, very painful, traumatic, and horrific experiences from other lifetimes. And that's on top of what we've gone through in this lifetime, frankly. So, people will, that's just generally like the general feeling better kind of, experience. And then, of course, I work with homeopathy, and so I can hunker down into very specifics, like kidney infections and, acne, and, there's quite a few things that I work with.
Yeah, and I like this approach because when you talk to the average person, they always think of, they go to their nutritionist after they've been to the regular doctors and they decide they've got to do things themselves. They go to the nutritionist and then they try the supplements and then they might get into homeopathy. And I know you go even a step further within homeopathy, and I heard that on your interview. And I'd like to address maybe like shock and trauma, because it seems like even when you get into like the German New Medicine philosophy, that there's always this conflict and then there's the resolution, which is the healing crisis, and people can keep going through these conflicts over and over again. How can somebody address a conflict that they're unaware of unconsciously and bring that into a place of resolution? Is there anything that you've discovered that works well for that?
Yes, and before I answer that, what I also want to comment on is when you are working with the energetics of the body, what you go in to address is oftentimes not what the body wants to address. So I just want to say that right away. When you start working with energy, you think you've got, for example, if you have a really horrific pain in your heel of your foot, it isn't necessarily the heel of your foot that needs to be healed. And so I just want to remind people of that, because it's one domino affecting another, Now, regarding your question, it seems to me that almost all the work that I've done, when someone is really hitting a wall and they can't get past things like really unsuccessful relationships, really terrible confidence, repetitive patterns at work, losing their job, not being able to, bring in the financial means that they desire, those types of things. These are patterns, and what we're finding is they're actually, believe it or not, viruses, because we live in a digital world.
Yes.
And so, we work with algorithmic codes. That's something that we're dabbling in as well. And when I say going beyond homeopathy, I really work more with a quantum homeopathy approach, where you're getting into the quantum field, recognizing that the body is far greater than even the 4 conventional bodies that alternative health teaches you. The alternative health teaches you the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual body. And those are the 4 that are typically addressed. But you can actually go beyond that and look at the typical patterns that are repeating themselves. And frankly, what it is it's quantum physics, where you're collapsing the wave of that propensity to be that way, or to be triggered by a certain event or experience or feeling. And the key is trying to figure out exactly what wave that is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Talking about the quantum level, and you talk about the shifting. What does that play out in terms of? I know you said something about you affect your other selves, like you can actually. It's kind of like tachyonic is a word, and because I think tachyonic transcends times. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that plays out?
Well, tachyon energy, you have 0-point energy, you have scalar wave. I mean, you have all these different types of energetic waves, and in many cases, a lot of us just kind of agree that in most cases, you're still dealing with energy, bottom line. Each of them has a special type of approach or purpose. Like scalar wave is absolutely spectacular. I remember one time I was literally in a wheelchair, and I went to a scalar wave. This was a cutting-edge therapy. I went to a scalar wave room where it was technology. They had it. I don't even pretend to understand how it all works, but essentially I was going in with the intention that I wanted to be healed or to lower my pain threshold, which was outrageously high. And with that intention, I was able to use the scalar wave frequency, where the intention rides that frequency.
Mm.
And sure enough, I came out of that experience and I diminished my pain. You know, all of these areas are going to become so normal. People will start hearing them all the time now. They say that tachyon is the closest energetic substance to source itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, they claim that it's a little bit of a different makeup. But the bottom line is you're literally working with the divine love and light of source, of whoever you want to call your divine power.
Yeah. And it's not so hard to believe that these are viruses, because essentially even some of the mainstream studies will agree that our brains are sort of like wired in like a computer. I mean, we've got like these programs going on in our heads, and what do you get when you get a program on your computer? It's a virus, and it kind of corrupts all the files. And so, if you know, most people think of viruses like, well, no, I don't have a cold virus. That's not what's causing this. It's more along the lines of that kind of virus, wouldn't you say?
Yes, because if you look at the body and the way that it's layered, you know, if you're a practitioner, you will recognize right away when you're working with a client, you will recognize that the reason that they can't get to the resolution of something is because they haven't gotten to the layer in which that root cause exists. Okay? And there are so many layers to the body. And again, I go back to, it's because we carry literally a very heavy load of memory, and anything that's dissonant to our frequential field. It could be something as simple as your age 2, you're in your crib and you see your father slapping your mother.
Yes.
That memory can mess you up big time. It can also cause you, and you're not conscious of it, it can cause you to choose the wrong partner because of seeing that experience. Because we are creators. We create all that is around us. So it's very important that we clean up our backyards, meaning all of the layers that are associated within our energetic field, not just our physical body. That's where it begins. But it's certainly only a small portion of what true health is about.
Yeah, exactly. And I heard a story. It was about a brown spider. Do you remember the story I'm talking about? Yeah, I really want to touch on that, because that sort of brings it home from a level where it sounds really good to a level where it's actually put into application. So do you want to share that story quick?
Sure. Basically, in homeopathy, what happens is when you have symptomology of some sort, such as racing of the heart, or inflammation, or temperature, or body pain, or bone pain, or things like that, what happens is you will go through a series of steps to determine if you can match that symptom with the best remedy. And in the homeopathic world, this can be pretty bizarre stuff that ends up matching those symptoms. With me, I had the experience of my husband getting bitten by a brown widow. And for those of you that haven't heard about them, they are really nasty. Now, they were really high in population a couple years back, and he ended up getting bitten in the back of his head. Now, through what I do, I was able to determine that, in fact, he was testing for a brown spider remedy. And what happens is if you can match the frequency of the symptoms with the frequency of the remedy, you can collapse the wave. I'm talking quantum physics here. And you can literally very quickly stop the symptoms from occurring. Now, the key, of course, is how successful are you in matching those two frequencies. You know, that makes all the difference in the world as far as how you know what you're going to do.
Yep.
But brown spider is also it's used for many other types of things. And for example, if you had like really burning pain, You know, you may actually test for that remedy because it's similar in the same types of symptoms. Is that answering your question? I'm not sure if that's...
Absolutely, because I like what you say, because I have a friend who's a naturopath doctor, and he had a broken neck, and he lived with it for about 18 years, and he was very smart, and what he decided was he was going to reverse engineer this because he found the frequency that would neutralize and send a healthy neck signal, and he actually healed his neck. So this is not like science fiction. This is actually reality. It's just what kind of technology do you have available that can complete that process? And that's what I think is, it's amazing, but it's here. The technology is already here today.
Absolutely, and the body is so responsive to these energetic therapies. In fact, the body craves it. Now, I'll just give you an example. When I work with children and I work with animals, I hear this over and over and over again. Now, they don't have the programming. They don't have as many layers as we do as adults. And they will crave my remedies. You know, they'll want to take them. If you bring them out in front of the dogs or cats, they'll actually come up to, you know, their owner or whatever you want to call it, and, you know, basically like, yeah, I want some, because they feel the frequency and they know that it's beneficial. So for us that don't necessarily have that ability yet to feel it, which we're all going to be there someday, you know, if you study up on just the whole premise of essence work, you'll get it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand the way it works.
Yeah, and I like what you said too about animals. You said something on your interview that I didn't know before, how they're like almost empaths. You said like they'll come around, and if they sense this sort of negative, you know, vibration, they'll want to take that from you. I thought that was interesting.
Yes, they do. There's like sponges, Matthew. I mean, unfortunately, we are so wounded and caught up in our own lives with all of our own stuff that we tend to forget that the animals, they just want to serve. Even if they're sitting off in the distance in the corner and they're not really hanging with you, it's just the way they're geared, is to try to take as much off of our plate energetically. But what happens is they themselves get bottled up, right? I mean, they get gunked up with dissonant frequencies. And so it's important. It's almost like taking a shower. You know, you need to shower off all the energy that you end up picking up from other places, other events, even people that you hang out with. You know, people do not realize that energy is, without a doubt, the core reason for illness, disease, and sickness.
I believe that's so true, and I've been through quite a bit of it myself, and it seems like as fast as it can come upon you, it can actually leave you if you kind of know what you're doing. It took me a long time to figure that out, but you know, it's a very scary place for some people that are in it and they don't understand the way out. So that's why I'm glad that you're here to, you know, spread some of the insight. So let's talk about the other side of it quick, where people have a lot of fear, because we have the GMOs and we have the chemtrails, and we have, you know, this is common knowledge now. We have all these external influences. What are some of the things we can do to kind of help ourselves in that area?
That's a good question. Well, I'll tell you right out the gate, number one thing, and that is we've got to stop being in fear. And I know that people are like, what? Are you serious? You're crazy. But the fact of the matter is, if you recognize, and this is what the whole spiritual journey is all about, which is intertwined with the health journey, they're really one and the same, is when you start recognizing your own true empowerment. And I'm not talking about like you being able to be the best musician or the greatest painter or the best salesperson, or, you know, those are just things that we do. I'm talking about who you are. And when you start dabbling in that arena and you recognize how truly powerful you are, and you start removing some of these blockages, you're going to understand that there isn't anything that we cannot get through and prevail. And we will. We already are. The light is definitely penetrating this planet at such a rate that people are having Kundalini awakenings, people are having visions, they're starting to become psychic overnight. This is happening all over the place.
It's
and this
true.
is, yeah, it's because we're very gifted. The human race is a very gifted race, even though we've been duped to think that we're not. So that's the first thing I say is no fear. It doesn't serve anyone. And if you really step back and you look at what you're fearful of, in many cases you'll recognize that the fear was not created by you. It was created either by an imprint from your mother's womb, or it was created by an experience you had at the age of 6 that you're still running off of at 75.
Yeah.
So you've lost all that time living off of a program that you created when you were 6 that's not serving you at all anymore.
Yeah. And let's say I just want to get right to it. Let's say I recognize that this is a good opportunity, and I say I've got this issue. I keep recreating this relationship issue over and over and over and over again. You have certain categories of these essences, or what I want a unique essence. What is the best way for me to decode what I'm trying to resolve?
Well, there's two different things. I mean, I have some pre-made galactic alchemical formulas that you can take a look at, but I also do personalization. And what I do with personalized remedies is I actually work with all of your fields. I work with your higher self, not just your physical conscious self, but also your higher self, maybe what people want to refer to as your subconscious. That's really not the same thing, but it's sort of. And what I do is I'm really making my essences very specifically in tune to your blueprint, your actual, what we refer to as your grid. And in that particular case, what I work on is what is the root and the core of what is causing you issues. And depending on how committed you are, I mean, I've seen people radically change, literally. You know, I've seen people that decide to commit to this for a year. Some people will do it for a month, and in either case, they get what they need. It's very important that we consider cleansing our energy fields.
Yeah, I feel like that's everything. Even when people are trying to, tidy up their nutrition, a lot of that, it just breaks down into the energy. A lot of the food, the bad food is just, it's bad energy, like where it was made, the intent behind it. You're taking all that into your body. When you bring it into your body, I feel that, the energy really is everything, and we're getting to truly understand that. And you talked about implants, and I got to tell you a quick story. So a few years ago was the first time I experienced this, but I remember feeling like my whole circuitry was just totally gone. And I went a few days like this, and I thought, this just can't be normal. And I had a friend who found me someone, and they said, you need to talk to this guy. He can help with your problem. And I called him up, and he said I had an alien implant. And at the time, I thought, wait a minute. I said, I don't know if I believe this or not. He goes, I don't care if you believe it. He goes, can I remove it? And I'm like, sure. And he said I had 2 of them. I had a couple in my brain, and he took them out, and then I felt better. I don't. It could have been placebo, but it could have been real. But I want to hear your insight on this, because whatever happened seemed very real to me, and I just want to hear what you have to say about that, because I know you're very educated in this area.
Oh, well, it's very real. Trust me, it's very real. We were all born onto this planet, and we all received bioetheric implants. Now, there's a couple of different kinds of implants, but the long and the short of it is these implants were put within our fields. It's very difficult to understand this, but they're put in the etheric part of your body, and yet you can physically feel it when it's being removed. So that's kind of weird. You got to wrap your head around that. But these were put within our field against our permission. And what they do, they're designed to maintain our frequency at a lower rate. They are designed to block our growth, block our connection to source, and also block our reactivation of our DNA strands. So it's a biggie. It's probably one of the most important things that someone can do for themselves as far as health goes. It should be one of the top 10 steps, literally. And we remove all of them. There are physical implants that are put within the body by aliens, and this happens all day long, every day, by the way. And that's a little bit of a different ball of wax, but you can deactivate those as well. But for the bioetherics,
Oh no, that's great that they can be deactivated, because it seems okay. Have you seen the movie? It just came out. Jupiter Ascending.
I am planning to go see that. I keep hearing about it. That one and Interstellar. I want to see both of those.
Okay. Yes. Well, anyway, there's a scene in the movie where the girl goes in the other room and she's just going about her business. The next thing you know, she like hits the floor, and then you see these alien beings come out, and they're just like looking her over, and you can see like how they just take control of the situation. Then she comes back, she doesn't remember anything, and
Correct.
you know, that's so. Every time Hollywood does this, it's like they always prime us. They put something out to get us aware that it's already been happening for a long time.
True. And they don't tell you all the truth. They just give you enough to scare the heck out of you, you know, unfortunately. Yeah. But the thing about the implants is they're also acting kind of parasitically, because they need the human body as a host. Believe it or not, they live off of the ectoplasma that we create when we are angry or fearful or sad or crying or hysterical or whatever. That's like food for them. And so we were each assigned so many of these within our field when we were born, and now it's become just a very hot thing to get them removed, because we lighten our loads when we do this. I'll never forget when when we decided to launch the service and I had mine done, I couldn't get over the feeling of freedom. It was just like nothing I've ever experienced. And now we're constantly implanted, a lot of us, especially people like myself that are high profile on the internet. They will continue to put, like DARPA chips and things like that within your field. But the bioetherics, which are literally, they kind of look like an octopus, and they are in very specific locations around the body. I think our average removals these days are at least 16. And yeah, I mean, we're just getting burdened with this stuff, because they're really trying to keep our light and our frequency down, because they don't want us to, become more aligned with why we're really here.
Yeah.
So it's a huge, huge, huge thing to do to increase your overall health.
And I do recommend it, because like I said, I remember the feeling of when I had them. It felt like I couldn't escape no matter what. I felt like I was in a low fear vibration. I couldn't get back to that peace anymore. And then once they were gone, it was, within a couple hours, I was like, whoa, like this is how you're supposed to feel. It was a change, huge change.
I got to tell you something really trippy, okay? I mean, people may not believe this, but I've been doing this now for almost 2 years. And in that 2 years' time, I've seen everything. I've seen everything that these implants can do. Now, they are alive, and they have a consciousness, and they're very cunning, and they don't want to lose their gravy train. They don't want to lose you as their host.
Right.
When it comes to the time that they're getting removed, they will go to great lengths to prevent that individual from having them removed. For example, they will embed horrific dreams. Mm-hmm. So you'll wake up screaming, thinking that you're about to fall off the planet or something. They will have you driving down the freeway, and you'll start having visions of being nuked. They will start sending you messages, mind chatter, and they'll start saying, you're going to die if you do this. You're going to die if you do this.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Now, don't tell me for a minute that something that's going to go to that extreme is for your benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
Not.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, people know that's the same with like even candida. I mean, it's a self-surviving mechanism. It can influence your cravings. It can influence. I mean, so these are etherically based, but they're still the same. They want to survive off of you, and if they can send thoughts to you like, hey, don't do this because, you know, it's bad for you. It's like, well, maybe that's not true. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I need to remove these because, you know.
Well, and think about it, frequency-wise, they've already proven that if you take a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, those pharmaceutical drugs have an embedded frequency that's doing the same thing. This is why people get addicted to them, because the addiction phrase of, you know, you need me, is all part of the whole thing.
Yeah, and that is so true, and I'm glad you said that. You even mentioned how, you know, you take a pharmaceutical is like usually, you know, a slight deviation off of a natural substance. That way they can patent it and they can do it. But, you know, there's more to it than that, because it seems like the difference between a pharmaceutical and a nutraceutical, it seems like night and day. You can take a whole bottle of nutraceuticals most of the time if you're crazy enough to do it. And, you know, nothing bad's going to usually happen for the most part, but sometimes even the smallest amount, like when they put me on benzos years and years ago when I had some anxiety attacks, and I took myself off after I researched them, but I took a sliver of one, and I felt like I was totally disoriented the whole time when I was on it.
It's crazy. Well, when I first had the accident, honestly, they put me on Vioxx, which later on I ended up almost dying, you know, because it messes with your heart.
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, you're so messed up after an accident, you'll do anything to get out of that kind of pain. You know, it's like, just take me out of this world, you know.
Yeah.
But I saw an article, and I wish I would have kept it, but this article actually showed under the microscope a picture of a face that energetically came out of a pharmaceutical drug, and they captured it, and it was like nasty.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I would like to see that sometime, because I'm very empathic and I can feel things. I was born clairsentient, so I can always feel things, but I'd like to see it, because that's another realm for me. When I can actually put a face to what I'm feeling, that would be a whole eye-opening experience.
I'm still trying to find it. I'm just bummed I didn't keep it. But, you know, what it did for me was it showed me that all of these things, and going back to what you said about GMOs and chemtrails, again, folks, remember that there are just as many high, light, vibrational beings that are trying to assist us as there are a lot of these terrible things that are going on right now. And we have to remember that and stay in perspective, because the fear is what adds to it.
Yeah.
The GMO foods, for example, yes, they are mutating the DNA, and no, they're not the greatest thing for you, of course, but why do people pray over their food? And you don't even have to pray. You can proclaim. You can command. You can create, you know, 3 lines that say, I thank this food, I thank the cow, the horse, the whatever, you know, for giving me this sustenance today, and I command that all contaminants and toxins be removed from this now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so it is. I do that over my food almost all the time. And the same goes with water. Now, water is so imprintable that just the mere holding of the container of water will transition the molecules of the water itself, especially if your intention is to put love into it. You have, you know, Emoto had proven that.
Yeah.
Water's an incredibly imprintable medium, I should say. And so we have the capability to get around all these things. I really do feel at this hour that what we're being challenged to do is to see things and to approach crises and adversities in a much better way, a much more mature way. And
Yeah.
that's what we're being trained to do right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think if you think of like a birthing process, that's always painful. And if you think of if we're going to ascend into a higher realm of understanding and into a greater expansion of our full potential self, so to speak, this may be a process. I always think of it like a boot camp. If they're going to make you stronger, it's not going to be that easy in the beginning. You're going to have to expand, and it's stretching yourself. It's going to hurt a little bit. And I like what you said about the illness part, because that evolution of your soul, your spirit, and then the illness kind of go hand in hand. That's when I had the Lyme's and the anxiety and all that stuff. That was my cocoon phase of coming out of that. And what I like is that you have a platform where people can connect, because I think it's so important that we get connected. And I know you talked with me a little bit about that, but what are your thoughts about that topic of getting connected and how we can help each other out?
Well, when you say connected, are you saying connected, with people, or just be a little clearer on your question?
Yeah, like connected in terms of people, because what I notice is that there's different signals going out, and I used to listen a lot to, I'm not going to give the name out, but a very prominent radio TV person on the internet, and it's all what I call fear porn. And all it does is it makes you scared, 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 scared. And that actually made me very, very sick. And it's very addictive. But there's got to be a better way. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts are about maybe connecting to a better transmission.
Okay. And thank you for that, because that's such a segue into my website, which is galacticconnection.com.
Yep.
What happened was, through all of the illness and the pain and the suffering that I went through for 11 years, and just that whole journey, which, again, you're so right, because people need to understand, if you've had a car accident, if you've gotten diagnosed with something, it is not the end of the world. You have to stop giving your power and authority away to one person that claims that you might have cancer or whatever, when in actuality, in many cases, if you go through alternative means, you'll find out that may not be the case.
Yeah.
So it's really important for us to expand our awareness. And I was really, oh my gosh, I was very pushed on a higher plateau to get this website going. And the whole purpose of it was to unite the ufology community, which we all know people are starting to see more and more extraterrestrial presence, to unite the conspiracy community, because we're starting to receive the truth about how heavy-handed, how dark, and to what degree this faction that runs the planet will go to maintain their power structure, and to unite the spirituality. And so I basically put this website together, and what it does is it provides you a smatterings of the day's events through the eyes of how we're progressing, and not focusing so much on the fear porn, is what I call it.
Yep.
And you can, my personal opinion is you can find that stuff everywhere. Fear porn is everywhere if that's what you get off on.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not going to serve you spiritually, health-wise, your relationships, your growth, your expansion, and I'm going to say your financial capabilities. There is absolutely nothing that fear is going to serve you in, other than when you have maybe a lion standing in front of you and it wants to, have you for dinner. Your fear mechanism will say, okay, wow, maybe I'm in a dangerous place. But other than that fight or flight survival instinct, it really, in my opinion, is such an old program. It's just such an old paradigm for humanity. We have got to stop it, and it's been programmed and it's been pushed upon us so exhaustively that we are trying to learn how to be a different way. And
Yeah.
this is very important. When you talk about transmissions of information, start tapping into sites like mine. You know, you'll get a lot of the awareness, and you'll find out about what's really going on out there, but you're not going to get inundated with, oh my God, they're going to come break down my door and take everything I own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's what we need is we need to know what's going on, but we need solutions. We don't need any more fear.
Absolutely.
We just need to say, hey, this is what it is. Which side do you want to be on? If you want to be on the good side, then choose a solution, and then let's take that path. And I like that you brought up money because, gosh, everywhere you look, everybody sees, you know, people are struggling because, you know, it's this old economy thing still going on. It's like the virus in our heads, and, you know, we're told that there's a lack. There is no lack. But if we believe there's a lack, we buy into it, and then we start to create it, and then we start to experience it. And the opposite of fear is kind of the courage and the confidence. And I've noticed that confidence attracts prosperity because it puts you in your place you're supposed to be in life. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that in terms of what you've seen.
I totally agree. In fact, I do quite a bit of essence work for, you know, things regarding financial issues. I have a great remedy called financial alignment, by the way, and it rocks. It's assisting you by going into the deeper areas of why we fear to be wealthy. And people are thinking, no, man, I want to be wealthy. No, well, really, if you dig deeply enough, you'll find a lot of programs and belief systems that you've acquired, not even necessarily from your own physical experiences, but from your parents and their dialogues, and from your grandparents, or maybe your sisters and brothers. You know, we are an amalgamation and an energetic field made up of every environmental circumstance around us, folks. We have to remember that we're not just a physical body. And because of that, we're very influenced by what is around us. This is why it's very important to, you know, if you're going to use your head and use your mind, you want to make sure that you're focusing on things that are going to assist your awareness, your confidence level, and your ability to understand that you're far greater than you've ever been told you are. I'm constantly hammering this. We're magnificent beings. The human race, we've all been duped to believe that we're just a bunch of sinners and a bunch of pieces of garbage.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that, too, is an agenda that we are all starting to realize is a lie. And it's time for us to not be children anymore. It's time for us to grow up and recognize the truth.
Yeah. It's almost the even in the biblical text it talks about, you know, Satan is the accuser. It's the false accusation, and all those are false accusations. If you believe you're a cockroach and you believe that you're not worthy, that is so far from the truth that the reason you feel so horrible when you have that is because it's so far from your true nature, and it's like a deception cycle. You think like, oh, I feel this way because I'm worthless. No, it's because you think you're worthless, so your body, your soul is telling you this is so much of a lie, that's why you feel this way. It's correct. Yeah.
And, Matthew, you just nailed it. You know internally that it's a lie. You cannot run away from what you know to be true within. You may not be conscious of it, but your internal workings know what's truth and what's not. And that's what I'm all about, is helping people to hone that part of it. And that's where you really truly become a master. And you become, you know, you're not allowing life to happen to you. You're creating life the way you want it to be for you.
Yes, exactly. And I like that because you have tools available and you're providing the solution. You're giving the transmission and the solution, and I think that's exactly what's important right now, because everybody's going through it at some level. I mean, you know, I've gotten to a level in my life where I'm very comfortable, but I still feel that, you know, that it's like an etheric, psychic realm of collective stuff coming at me, and I have to protect myself against that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's actually, You know, you're going to see this more and more and more about protection. On my website, I have a button just for protection tools that I provide. It's free. You can go up there anytime and access it. If you start using that, you'll notice that your protective field will enlarge itself. And as you take the blinders off and you start to recognize how much is out there that wants to help you, instead of living in this little huddle of, oh my God, who's gonna attack me, who's gonna take away my house, you know, who's gonna hurt my children. Think about it. All the news is all about that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we're here to. It's time for us. I do hear this. I know it's overused, but it's true. It's time for us to get off of our knees now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really not that complicated. It's just a matter of making a decision. And the decision is simple. It's who are you going to listen to? Because it comes down to that. You know, whatever information you're going to subscribe to is going to determine the path that you walk on. And you know, in my mind, I'd go to galacticfederation.com and start listening.
Galactic Connection.
Yes, I keep thinking of the Galactic Federation.
Well, that's because they are, yeah, they're part of the scene.
Exactly.
But you know what? I want to say something else for your audience, and that is, it's very, very important for you to know and to give yourself the allowance that whoever you choose to assist you. Let's say it's like you're a newbie and you're just kind of dabbling in this field and you're just starting out. It's okay to choose whoever you want to choose. And if you walk away from it and you're disappointed or you didn't get what you wanted, you have to start taking accountability and understanding that it's not about the healer or the practitioner, but it's about you. And that's what's so empowering about this journey, is there's no more like pointing fingers and saying, oh, well, you didn't give me this. The bottom line is this is about allowance. It's a completely different boat to ride. You're allowing things to unfold in your life instead of controlling the outcome or dictating the journey to the outcome.
I like that a lot. I really do. You know, one of the issues I overcame was eating disorder when I was younger, and we talk about the control issue. That is the issue. It's we feel like manipulation is control, but in fact, what you're saying, when you allow, you actually are letting things unfold as they should, and then you have your intention, and then you have real power, you have real control in that relaxed state.
Exactly.
Yeah. So very good. Well, we've got just a few more minutes before we wrap up. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch upon, Alexandra?
Well, just that we've just got so many exciting things in the works. I am about to release a whole new African line because I do a lot of spiritual mission work, and I just came back from Africa in November of last year. So I'm about to release that. My husband also has an amazing self-healing therapy, and this is cool because what it's doing is it's marrying technology with intention. So if the person has a very strong intention of what they want to manifest, that really rocks. I've just got so much stuff in the works. It's just a very, you know, as much as people hear the opposite, this is an extremely exciting time to be alive. We are so blessed to be alive and see the changes that are coming forth. But you have to understand that when you have something that's gone awry, as much as our planet has, that must unfold. It's like everything else on the planet. It is just a natural law that it must unfold and expose and come to the surface for the beautiful light to come forward. So just keep the faith and know that we're all out here to support you. If you feel drawn to my essences, or if you'd like me to make any, you know, personalized essences, please contact me. You can always drop me an email that's all over the place on my website, which is galacticconnection.com.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw a plug in too, because we've spoken a few times and in depth, a lot more than we did today. And I know that your knowledge of, you even have a knowledge of nutrition, healing. You have a vast wealth of information, and you're making it sound so simple. But I do recommend, if you want to explore this, definitely do get in contact with Alexandra and try it out, because that's how you know. You put it to the test, and then when you start to see results, you know you're in the right place. So with that said, that's where it's at. Just take the step, have faith, and then know that you're moving forward, taking your power back.
Well, and on top of that, Matthew, you drew me into your field, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that frequency, again, is going to benefit both of us, including all clients,
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I'm not going to take up too much of your time, Alexandra. I know you're busy. So let's wrap it up with that. And again, let's just give out your website. It's galacticconnection.com. And, yep, this is...
and I also have a radio show. If you really want to start opening your eyes, check out my radio show. And there's a BBS radio tab on my site. And I do a radio show every Tuesday afternoon from 3 to 4:55 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
I like that. And that's where I was getting my information, when I was listening to your radio show. So definitely a valuable resource. And that's what I was saying in terms of, if you're going to listen to something, make sure you listen to something that's going to propel you towards the life you want. So definitely good information. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alexandra. It was a pleasure, and we will be back again soon, I'm sure. So with that said, thanks everybody for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this broadcast, and we will see you next week on the Natural Health Report.
The best years of your life are ahead. Live from Hollywood, California, the man who traded in hope for a solution, the vaccine for America's pharma dream, the man who legalized stealing your health back. You're listening to the Natural Health Report with your host, Matthew David Hurtado.